Welcome to the Hillis Public Adjusters podcast. If you've ever had property damage or worried about what would happen if you did, you're in the right place. Because behind every claim, there's a story, and not all of them go the way they should. We're pulling back the curtain on the insurance world, sharing real claim experiences, hard lessons, and the kind of insider knowledge that can make all the difference. We're your hosts from Hillis Public Adjusters, and we're here to educate, empower, and maybe even entertain you a little along the way. Let's dive in. So I have joining me today 3 wonderful women with Hillis Public Adjusters. Why don't you guys tell us who you are, a little bit about yourselves, and I don't want your formal bios, be real.
Want me to start? I'm Laura Hillis. I am the Vice President of Hillis Adjustment Agency. The company is my father, Bob Hillis. He started it over 40 years ago, and I have been with the company now for over 10 years, and I just absolutely love it. I grew up with it, and just felt like it was in my blood to work with the company and continue on his legacy.
Amazing.
I'm Tamara Baez, and I'm the Director of Structure and Development. And what I do is assist the company in continual growth, making sure that we're hiring who we should, that it's structured well, so that we can keep doing what we do.
My name's Dahlia Bryant. I'm a public adjuster with Hillis Adjustment Agency, and I have more of a legal background, but came to public adjusting because of my own personal experience. I had a really difficult claim with the insurance company and recognized that even with my legal background, it took me almost a year to get a claim that I was rightfully entitled to the proceeds for to have that pan out. Went all the way up to the Pennsylvania Insurance Commissioner. And I thought at that point, this was something that I had the time and the background to undertake. But what do young families do who would have to take out a loan to cover what they were entitled to under their insurance contract? And so after this was resolved for me, I did some research to see, are there people that protect homeowners against their insurance company? And lo and behold, I discovered public adjusting. So that was my career path at that point, and I could not be happier. I mean, Hillis is just amazing, and the things that the company does for homeowners is just, you can't even put a price on it. So anyway, it's very rewarding, challenging, and it's an incredible position. And just being part of this company is amazing. Everybody's really committed to, ensuring that we get the best results for our clients. And I think, it's fair to say everybody goes above and beyond. So it's a little more than you asked for, but...
Hey, we're just here to chat. So no, but I totally agree. I love working with Hillis. My name's Deetra. I didn't introduce myself. I am the claims intake manager at Hillis. So if you call us with a claim, you'll probably be talking to me or another member of my team. So I'm excited to be here. I know for myself, I did not think that I would be working in public adjusting. I'd actually had no idea what public adjusting was. When I was a kid, I thought I would be an actress. So I'm going to ask you guys, did you always think you would be doing public adjusting, or what was your dream as a child, or what did you think you would be doing?
I think I always kind of thought I would work for the company just because I grew up with it. So it's a little bit different for me. But I also was interested in like marketing and advertising, which I've been able to bring a little bit to this company as well.
Amazing.
I wanted to be a doctor. And when I was 18, I was diagnosed with diabetes. So then that went south because they were like, you need to stay like close. But I still think I'm a doctor. So that works. And it also helps with kind of what we do every day. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm. And Dahlia, I know you started as a lawyer. Was that always your...
Actually, actress. I wanted to be an actress or a lawyer. And so I did take a year off between college and law school, and I realized that I'm just not good enough. There were so many talented people. At the time, I think I should have gone to directing. I think that would have been a good fit for me. But the legal part has just always drawn me. or it's just always spoken to me. And so it's really a great fit for me to be able to work as a public adjuster because I get to be involved with, property claims in a lot of different ways. And I just love all of the legal challenges. We always joke that, the longer the longer the contract is, the more excited I get about it. They know me as the insurance policy geek because if, a 100-page contract comes in, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Everybody else is like, yeah, you have fun with that.
Yeah,
so,
That's why I always like,
yes.
Yep.
I really enjoy
send
it.
Dahlia
Great.
task all the time.
Yeah.
Can you please review this?
Yes.
Yeah.
this policy or this claim, and they'll be like really intense claims and with a lot of documentation, and within just like a couple of hours sometimes Dahlia will come back with information and answers for the client. And
Right.
so it is definitely very helpful.
And I think there's so much, for me, it's so juicy in that contract because, I think that's one of the really important reasons for people to use a public adjuster because, most people they don't have the time or the wherewithal to sit and look at 100+ page contracts where things
Exactly.
are buried. It's not meant for a
Confusing.
layperson to understand what their rights are and what they're entitled to. And so, when you give that claim to Hillis, we have that expertise to be able to, not only dive in, but be excited about it and to, look for the coverage that, most people are not going to find if they don't have an expert looking at that kind of documentation.
And I say that's one of the things that I always encourage people that call us. Like, it's so valuable what we're offering, and there's not a fee to have somebody review it. And a lot of times you'll come back and you'll have questions for the homeowners, and I try to encourage them, like, take the time to answer these questions because what Dahlia is doing is a very thorough review and giving you the most accurate information possible. And the only way that we can do that is if you supply this information to us. So I think, and I've seen just how helpful it is for people when you do those reviews.
Yeah. I also think it's important because a lot of our clients want to argue principle, and that's not what the insurance company does, right? They're arguing a contract, right? So if when people come to us and they're like, well, we have asthma, or my dog is sick, or my grandmother lives with us, and the insurance company doesn't really care about that. And when you review the policy or the contractual obligation between the insurance company and our clients, we're giving them information that we can stand on. And then that's where the argument or the negotiation comes and why we're successful in it, because we're able to take the emotion out of it that if you're doing it yourself, it's very difficult to do because you're going through it.
I think that's a really good point. I think not only are people suffering from whatever their property damage is, but on top of that, I think people are often frustrated. Like, I've been paying this insurance company for 30 years, and I've never had a claim. So it's only just, or it's only right, that they pay now. And of course, we can understand that. But, it's really critical that we have the legal basis to be able to make those arguments. And I think it's important also, what our team is able to do when people don't have a claim so that they don't get their hopes up about something or make, financial decisions, assuming that they're going to have coverage because, they believe in principle. And so it helps people to make informed decisions about how to proceed, with their property and their property damages and their repairs when they know whether they're going to have coverage or not. So I think both ways, it's really important to know, do I have coverage? If I do, how extensive is it? Or don't I have coverage? And if you don't, at least then you're informed and you know what you can do with that.
Yeah. Or even if they have coverage, but it doesn't behoove them to put a claim in. Right. So we've had a few last week where a roofer knocked on a door and was like, you have hail damage. There's hail damage in your area. And we had one of our roofers go out, assess it, and he's like, there's like one ding on the gutters and you have a $1,500 deductible. Like, it's not going to make sense for you to put a claim in because it's going to not be a good look on your claim history, but then also it's not going to be covered. It's going to be below deductible. So you're going to get a negative kind of mark on your policy history or your claim history, and then you're still not going to be able to fix whatever is there. So
I've also found when we do that with clients, they always are so happy that we told them that, and then they come back to us in a year or two if something else happens. Like they're very happy they didn't waste the time, put the claim in, they fix it on their own. So I think that that's really important also. But I did want to go back to what you said about the policies. I love the story. There was a claim in Florida, and it was from one of the floods or hurricanes, and you were able to find in the policy coverage for the additional living expense. And I think we got $40,000 to $60,000 for them on that, and they had no clue. And I think the insurance company wasn't going to bring it up. So there's just so many hidden things in the policy that unfortunately the insurance company is not coming to light with. They're not going to bring forth, and that's really where we are really valuable. And Dahlia is really great at looking at those policies and finding those things.
We did. We had one where we found there was a provision that provided there was an ALE section, but then there was an additional provision, and I think we got an extra $200,000 in one of those claims. And when I was talking to the insurance adjuster about it, I said, "Oh, I had sent out our request for the additional monies," and they said, "Oh no, here's this provision, and that's what is covered." And I said, "No, there's another provision on page whatever it was," and she just kind of stopped dead in her tracks and said, I've never seen that before. I'm going to have to send that to legal." And they sent it to legal and came back and she said, "Yeah, we didn't know. I didn't know that provision was there." So sometimes, even the adjusters themselves aren't aware of certain provisions, which really behooves people again to, seek out the experts who deal with the contracts and who know where to look to find kind of those little juicy tidbits.
And while we're on the Dahlia train, because there's another, so I had a friend for Sally, and she lived in Daytona, I think it was Daytona Beach, and the hurricane, when it got to where she lived, it was like a little after midnight, and it was declared a tropical storm like 4 hours before. And she was just like, my Florida room, it's like so messed up. And like we had talked, and we were able to provide the information so that like the timestamps and things like that. So instead of having a $8,000 deductible, she had $1,000 deductible because it was no longer a hurricane when it hit her. And she was like, "Oh my gosh," because it was like a $4,000 like damage. So it wasn't like some ridiculous amount of damage, but if she would have put a claim in and they were telling her it's a hurricane, she's like, "No." We were like, "No, it's not." So now she could get her Florida room fixed because the appropriate deductible was applied. Mm-hmm. And 1,000% it would not have been the case because they automatically were like, "This is a hurricane."
And I think that's like something that people find is when the insurance company, in this position of authority, tells you, "Oh no, there's no claim here," or denies the claim. A lot of times people will just accept that. Mm-hmm. But a very impactful thing that I think that we do is we will review those denials. And Dahlia, you've had a lot of success getting denials overturned from the insurance company. Could you maybe share like one story for a really good one?
We've had, a number of
a lot of great ones.
Interesting claims. But, I think one of the things that we talk about a lot in our company is, and I think there's confusion, generally speaking, even within the insurance world, is about the difference between a backup and an overflow. Right? We see that situation all the time. So typically speaking, insurance contracts are going to exclude coverage for backups, or by endorsement, they'll cover a backup, but they'll limit the amount. So really what a backup is when you have like the municipal sewer line. This is the most strict definition, but you have the municipal sewer line and you have a bad rain situation or some problem with that municipal line, and it sends sewage or water that's not your own back up into your pipes and into your home, and it causes damage. Mm-hmm. So the insurance company naturally says, we don't really want to take a risk for that. Like that's kind of beyond the bounds of, what we see within a home. But if you have something like, you go to flush your toilet, and all of a sudden, sewage comes back up in your toilet and damages your property, that is not a backup, even though lay people will say that. And oftentimes when they call in a claim and report it, they'll use that layperson language and say, sewage backed up into my home. Well, the insurance company oftentimes will run with that and say, oh, good to hear about a backup. We'll let you know. And then the next day, suddenly you get the denial saying, we don't cover backups, or we cover it, but only up to $5,000. Those claims should be covered, like that typical, you go to flush and you have some kind of clog. Those should be covered all the way up to your coverage, a building limit. You do not have, an endorsement that limits that. So we've had a number of those types of claims where there's been a denial for a backup, and then we've gone back in and we've had them, rescind their denial and extend coverage for an overflow. Or a discharge from a pipe. So those are big ones, and that's a lot of money for people going from a denial to being able to get coverage for all of the damages to their home. So
what's interesting is, I'm sorry, the language, because even if we were to report it as an overflow, they would deny it. We have to then do an accidental discharge, so it's very important, the language and the words that you use, which from reporting claims. But you even just had one recently that the insurance company applied, I believe it was the overflow. They sent us their estimate. I think their estimate of damage was about $26,000, but they limited it to the $10,000. Dahlia sent a letter, made her arguments, and they agreed, and then issued the remaining of their estimate up to the $26,000. So it's very important. I mean, you should never just kind of roll over to the insurance company and just take their word for it.
Or call them, because that's kind of like what we say, like our little tagline is, why settle for less, call Hillis first, because we often feel like we're calling an advocate and we're not. You're calling a business who wants their purpose is to make money, right? So you don't really understand. That's like me going to my mechanic being like, I think it's the alternator, right? Because I have no clue. Could I know? I could do some like investigation. I could ask people, or going to my doctor being like, I think it's my pancreas. And your doctor's probably like, how about let's do some tests, right? Let's draw some blood, right?
You might be right. You did want to be a doctor.
I might be right. I'll probably be more right than
crazy
some people, right?
Yeah.
But it's like when you go to the insurance company and you're like, oh, because people even call us and be like, I know it's my pipes. And we're like, well, let us come and assess, right? Because it could be your pipe, but it could also be something else, right? And what we're going to do is make sure that how we move forward is beneficial for you, right? Not us, right? But for you. So we don't gain anything from having you put a claim in that is super low value or is going to cause your deductible to raise or things like that. So like that with the language thing, like we understand language and everything we do is for our clients to be able to have their home or their, whether it's commercial or residential, prepared or repaired in the way that it should. But if we didn't work on your behalf, like people want to come back to us, right? So it doesn't cost you anything, right? But also we're not going to lead you in a way that is going to then be detrimental to us either.
Yeah, and I think getting back to both of your points, another reason why you want to call Hillis first is because, when we report it, we're going to report an overflow as an overflow. We're not going to use backup language, versus if an insured reports that claim and you're talking to the insurance company and they say, what happened there? So you had water come up, was it a backup? And you think, yeah, I'm telling the truth right now. The water, it did back up, and you say backup. We don't do that. When Hillis reports it, they know how to report it in such a way that we're starting off on the right foot. So can we take a claim after an insured has reported a backup? Absolutely, we can do that. But it's more work for us, and it's going to extend the time that, an insured is going to have to deal with the claim, because we have to go back and undo what somebody unwittingly did, when they reported their own claim. So when they, report it to us and let us do the reporting, it already, puts everybody one step forward.
Yeah. What's also interesting, and we had one of our employees, and I'm not saying that everyone that works for the insurance company is terrible, but it's just like they're under the guidance of the insurance company. So one of our employees was on a call and they were reporting, and we record our calls, right? So we had got a letter from the insurance company saying that we reported it as seepage. And I was just like, No, like we wouldn't do that because one, if it was seepage, we would have never reported this claim in the first place, right? So I go back and I listen to the call, and our admin was talking, and he was just like, "Yeah, water had come in like around the doorway," and the agent was like, "Oh, so it seeped in?" And he was like, "No, it came in from the doorway." And he was like, "Okay, so it seeped in from the doorway." And so like I took it and I sent it. I was like, "This is not okay." Right. And it was like became a big old thing. But that's what, if I was just the insured, right? We think that we're just having a conversation and they're trying to push you towards saying certain like language and using certain terminology so that they can get their way. And it's really terrible.
People will call and they'll often say, "My basement flooded. I have a flood." And no, you don't have a flood. You do not have
You
a
probably don't
flood.
have flood insurance. You definitely don't have a flood.
But people don't, they're like,
don't
"It's
know.
flooded. I have 2
And
feet of water in
they
my
could
basement."
call and say that and get denied. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
And
That's how
you
they
would
people
think,
speak.
Right.
You know?
yeah,
Right.
but you would think the insurance company would be like, "Well, where do you live?"
Right.
I don't think you have a flood.
Right.
Has there been
No.
50 inches of water that has risen from the
But
ground
no,
up?
of course
Then
they
you don't
don't.
have a flood, right? And that's where it's it's sad, because you would think that when they're calling the insurance company, they would be like, "I don't think, let us just come out and see." And we also, like, when we tell our clients, is like, whatever they told you over the phone, no, you get it in writing, because that doesn't like mean anything. If they tell you don't have coverage, they need to prove that you don't have coverage,
See
not
in the
you.
policy.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really think is great that we do is anybody that calls, even if it sounds like it may not be covered, we always want to send somebody out to take a look at it, because we want to make sure that we see the whole picture. And sometimes our adjusters have found other issues that the client was unaware of. You know, the client called. I remember a story, I believe it was actually my dad who went out, and it was for a leak in the ceiling, and it was this tiny little issue in the ceiling. And he was walking around and he was looking up and he was seeing all of these, it almost looked like cobwebs. And here they had a puff back and the whole house had to be cleaned, everything, down to the utensils, every content. And it was a huge claim, and they didn't even realize it. And even just the other day, one of our adjusters went out for wind damage to a roof, and he was walking around looking at the whole property. And in the back, there was a pool house, and he heard water running. And he said, "Why is there water running in this pool house?" And they opened the door, and there was a frozen pipe in the pool house. The whole place had water. So we always want to go out and help the insured and make sure that we see everything, we put in the proper claim, and we make sure that it's all covered for them.
And I think another point about, you know, having us go out and take a look, that's so important, is that we can then also, because again, the nice thing about hiring a company like ours is that it's kind of like the assurance you have when you get on a plane. The pilot's on the plane with you, right? So you know their interest is aligned with yours. You know, our payment is based on a commission. So we get a part of what the insurance company pays. So we have a vested interest with our clients. So our interests are all aligned, as opposed to the, you know, insurance company, who a lot of people insured that, you know, we'll talk to, I'll hear them say sometimes, "Well, you know, my adjuster's coming out to look at this to assess the damage." And I'll say, "Oh, you've hired an adjuster?" And they'll say, "Oh, no, like, you know, the insurance company, they said they're sending out my adjuster." And I'll say, let's be very clear. That adjuster is not your adjuster. That adjuster works for the insurance company. But I think to kind of underscore a lot of the points that we're making, we feel, or a lot of people feel, that the insurance company is on your side. You know, they don't recognize that it's a business relationship, it's a contractual relationship. And so they put a lot of weight on what the insurance company says and does, and believes that their interests are aligned. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. But the point I was going to make about, you know, having us go in and check things out first is, and also kind of dovetails back into the fact that we look at these contracts. So many people are shocked about what their deductibles are, for example. So they'll say, "Yeah, we want to put in a claim," and it might even look good. But then we'll look back at the contract before we file that claim on somebody's behalf and say, "Oh, actually, did you know that you have a $5,000 deductible now? I thought I had a $500 one." And then we say, but that little endorsement pack or the little renewal packet that you get every year, that's where they hide, those details that we spend a lot of time looking at, where people originally, when you first signed up with the insurance company, you might have had a $500 deductible.
Right.
But now by renewal, they've, now it's a percentage of your, building A. So now you're paying $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it might be. Another one is that we see a lot now is roof schedule. Initially, somebody thought that they were getting complete replacement coverage for their roof. That's what they had. And then they snuck it into that, little renewal packet, and suddenly it's subject to a schedule. So now you're only getting 30% of your roof coverage. So if we see a situation like that right up front, at least we can have that conversation with the client to say, even though we think that we can get coverage for the roof, you have this roof schedule and you're only going to make, you're only going to receive X number of dollars and your deductible is Y, maybe this doesn't make sense for you to do that. So I think, to be able to get that kind of feedback, really critical feedback in a situation where you're not even paying for that up front. I mean, it's just such an invaluable tool to have a public adjuster like our company come in and
Help with
look
that.
at this information right up front.
Yeah, it's a shame because that really is on the insurance agents who are selling the policies. They're just looking to help the homeowner maybe have a lower premium, but they're adding all of these endorsements and these restrictions that are affecting the homeowner. So
I also think, though, because this is one thing we often, when we talk to our clients, is like a lot of people go for higher deductibles because of the
premium.
financial ability, you know what I'm saying, responsibility, right? So when you own a property, you have to have insurance, right? And if they're like, oh, if I have a $2,500 or like $5,000 deductible, then my premium's lower. But they're not thinking that if you have a damage, this is just allowing the insurance company to not have to pay you money, right? And that in itself, so I always try to tell people, if you can afford it, don't have anything more than $1,500, because otherwise the amount of damage that will have to occur, right? Because drywall doesn't cost like a ton, you know what I'm saying? Or floor, depending on what you have, but you're paying for any accidental damage, right? So otherwise you're constantly paying a premium out of pocket. And then if you're constantly fixing everything out of pocket, then what you're paying double. You can afford then to pay a lower deductible.
I think it's a lot of people don't think that something is going to happen.
Right.
And often, people will have a policy for or home for 20 years and never have a claim. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 claims in 1 year. So,
Or they always think they think it like you have insurance for when
a fire
you have a
happens.
fire.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a
99% of the
misconception,
time
too.
you're having all these other smaller
Right.
damages. It's like with like people get life insurance or healthcare, that thing like, oh, I'm getting it for like, nothing's gonna happen to me or like in my family for like this many years, so I'll get it later, or those types of things. And it's like, it's scary, you know what I'm saying, to have to be put in a situation where you don't have the coverage that you need, or you have it but you're getting so much less value out of what you're paying for because of ridiculously high deductibles.
And I think that's like a really amazing part of how Hillis functions, is that we do work on a contingency basis, right? So we don't get paid on the claim unless you get paid on the claim. So you're not having to come out of pocket to pay like this crazy fee to use our services. We're starting to work for you before there's even a guarantee that this claim is going to pay out. So I think for the homeowner, that's like something beneficial to think about as well. And even thinking about contractors, and we were speaking about the insurance companies, a lot of times the insurance company will have referrals for clients. And I always tell them, don't use them. It's better to go with your own contractor versus somebody that's affiliated with the insurance company, because again, their interest is vested in the insurance company, not necessarily in you. So I want to move us on a little bit. I think that something that I've noticed sitting here and I think is awesome, and one of the reasons why we're doing this, is that we're all women in a very heavily male-dominated industry. And just listening to everybody speak and the level of knowledge that you bring to the table is just really impressive. And I want to ask, being in this industry, have you ever felt underestimated or because you are a woman, or had any experiences that you think were directly influenced by the fact that you are a woman?
Can't think of anything offhand. I do. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that I was a woman, but I remember a couple years ago, we had a bunch of claims in Florida, a lot of hurricane claims, and we were just so inundated. And I found an adjuster at an insurance company who was willing to settle a lot of claims. And I sat down and I went through and kind of came up with numbers that we were looking for on all of the claims. And it got to a point where he said, "I'm not going to work with you anymore. You're not licensed." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm working under Bob Hillis, who is licensed." And he kind of gave me a hard time. So I don't know if it had anything to do with me not being a woman, or me being a woman, or just the fact that I didn't have my license. But it is really exciting and interesting to see more women in the field, because I know when I started, I didn't know any female adjusters, right, at all, that were in the field. I know that we have you. Jessica Yim is one of our other female adjusters that is out in the field all of the time. And I just think that it's amazing. I think that it's definitely changing for sure.
I would say one thing that helps me, which is unfortunately hounded me since I was a little child, is that, well, maybe not a little child, but puberty, I have a very manly voice. So a lot of times I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, "Listen, sir," and I go, should I correct them or no? But once they do realize I'm a woman, I mean, I've had a couple of instances with older, male adjusters who've said, basically like, "Listen, honey, I've been doing this for a long time, and, that's the way it's done." And so I'll usually say, with all due respect, I'm sure you have been doing this for a long time, but what we're talking about really is what's afforded under the contract. And what I'm looking at is X, Y, and Z. So, for me, to be able to use the contract itself, it really doesn't matter how long you've been practicing. And in fact, I would say, sometimes it's a disadvantage because the way it was done for a long time isn't the way it's being done today, with the way that with the speed now that a lot of insurance companies have altered their contracts. You really have to, look at every contract, every single one of them, every single endorsement, because the language is constantly changing and being revised and endorsed and, altered. So even though there are, people who have been in the field for, a long time, men in particular, I think that it's a very level playing field today for men and women, even if you haven't been in the field that long, because, it's based on what the insurance contract affords. And so we're as good, if not better, than the men at
Very much better
doing that. Yeah.
but just in general in life, like no matter what it is.
And that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, a whole nother podcast. But I will, just to add to that, like I feel, because I've been in corporate America for most of my life, and it's always a struggle in general because you're walking into spaces where people don't expect you to be, especially being a woman of color, right? So, but I will say in the conversations I've had many, because I've been on site a few times, like if I need to go, and when people say, "Well, this is how it's done," that could be said about anything, right? And I loved your response, like, "Thank you, precious, but this is what the policy says." And a lot of times in those rooms where they're like, this is how we do it, they're less concerned with what the policy says, but like, what can we, like, what are we going to work out? Like, what are we going to work out?
It's almost like horse trading.
Yeah. And they don't feel that they can do that with a woman.
Yeah.
One, because they don't feel like they have any common ground when it comes to that. And again, I'm sure it's getting better. I'm saying it's getting better, but I have, and even with, I know that our Jessica's not here, but like she's a smaller stature, like, girl, right? Or like woman. So when she goes out, like, she's like, even other women will be like, "Oh," something, what I'm saying? So in general, just the way she carries herself, she's almost always kind of like talked to like she's a kid instead of like a grown ass woman.
And then until she negotiates with them. And then she's a
and then they realize,
whoa, where'd that come from? Yeah.
Yes.
She's a beast.
She's feisty.
Jessica gets
Yes.
amazing things covered. So it almost works to her benefit, because they probably underestimate her, like,
Sorry,
"Oh, we'll go easy on this little one." Meanwhile, she's like, ready to pounce.
Yep.
Yeah.
Claws out.
She's awesome.
So, has there ever been a claim or a moment where you really felt like you had to stand your ground or really like dig in to get something to happen for a client?
Every single day.
Yeah, all the
Every
time.
single day. Yeah, I do feel like that. And, some Dan Baruda, one of the other, adjusters from our company at a certain point will be like, "Are you ever going to let this go?" And I'm like, actually, no, I don't think I will. I, eat, dream, sleep, thinking about it. So yeah, I think that, I think that's what we do because we know on the other side is, an entity that has no interest in giving an inch. So I think that, it's very rare to find nowadays where we don't have a fight. So I think we do have to stake our claim for our clients'
I
behalf.
enjoy doing that as well. And I think that the more you push and the longer you have something open, you eventually get what you want.
I know this.
Me and Dahlia
Yeah.
are great with that.
Yeah.
If one of our adjusters wants to close a file or thinks we've gotten everything, or, it's maybe another $500 we could get, I'll say, Dahlia, we're going to try to get this. And I'll even sometimes just start sending emails, and I could have it open for months just to get that $500, but I will not let that go.
Laura never ever gives up. She'll be like, "Nope, yeah. Do you think there's anything left?" I'm
Yeah.
like,
There's
maybe like $25. She's like, "That's
Right.
$25."
$25, yeah.
By golly,
But I will
Yeah.
tell you this is another thing that like the insurance company is not just giving us money to give us money. And that's what we try to tell people. It's
Yeah.
not magic. So if they're affording this money, it's because they owe it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, we're not like around a cauldron being like, ooh, more
Yeah.
money. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're working
Yeah.
for you to get exactly what you should get.
Right.
And if I owed you $25, you gonna want it. Right? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, it doesn't matter like what it is. And I think it's hilarious because there's often a time where like, Laura,
Let
okay?
it go.
I'm like, here, take here. $25.
That's what she'll call me, and she'll be like, "Do you think?" And I'm like, "No, don't close it. Let's work on that."
But I think that's
Yeah.
like a testament to why you're successful, though, is
Right.
because you don't let it drop.
Yeah.
It's $25, $25.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
why
had a
we have all the clients we do, because that's
Yep.
something we haven't really touched on, but it really is amazing to see the way the company's been built. I mean, we don't really advertise much. We get a lot of business word of mouth, a lot of repeat customers, people that come back, even people that sometimes we don't like walk away not so happy. They will call us back because they know that we are the best in the industry and we will fight for them. And, like you had mentioned earlier, we work for them for a long time sometimes when not getting paid. I mean, we could work a year on a claim and not get anything from the insurance company. The denied claims, I mean, many hours go into that. So I think that really makes us stand out.
I think also what makes so like, because we're fighting really like, especially at the beginning, to make sure that people can start moving on the repairs, but not really, they're not thinking about like what else is happening. So like, I have a solicit in North Carolina, and we were working, it was a very difficult claim, cedar shake, and like there was like the insurance company was only trying to repair like 3 planks, and we're like, that's not how this works, right? You can't just repair 3 planks of cedar shake. So the interior was done. He had a salon working. We had he got him money. He was fixed the interior, and then it was like 9 months later, and we got like $5,000 more, and we're like, oh, here's the 5,000. He's like, wait, y'all are still working on this? And we're like, yep,
Yeah.
here you go. Here's your dollars. Go get your cedar shank. And he
Yeah.
wasn't even thinking about it anymore because that's what we want. Like, we don't want you to be stressed out about it. Like, you keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to be working tirelessly. And then happy times for you.
Right.
Here you go.
Here's some
Merry
extra money.
Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah. Happy Hanukkah.
So I think we're coming to a little bit of a wrap up on this. So I will ask you guys 2 more questions. First, what impact or legacy would you like to leave in this industry when you're done? Big question. Big
that
thought.
people are scared to mess with us.
That's right.
Yep, that's what that our clients trust us enough to hand over their most like valuable possession and know that we're not going to take it for granted, and that the insurance company's scared.
Yeah, and that the
Yeah.
insurance company knows that we have that, and
Right.
after all of these years of the work that your father put in, that you've put in, all the adjusters through the years, I think that is the reputation, that Hillis has already, but to continue to extend that into the future where the insurance company knows, like, right away that they kinda go, "Ugh," when they see
They
that
do that
they're
now.
They
represented
change
by us.
adjusters.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that they keep
And they
doing
keep
that.
doing
So
that.
right, so they
Right.
keep doing that
And we keep
because
being able to help more and more homeowners and continue to build and grow the business, because I think there's a lot more changing in the industry right now and a lot more denials and non-coverage. And there's a lot of people out there that are just walking away from it. And I think that that's really where we need to kind of find those people and make more people aware, because there's still a lot of people that don't know what a public adjuster is. It's really mind-blowing to me that that's still the case, but it is. So to just kind of expand, the company, the industry, and continue working for our clients, that's what we're doing every
Yeah, and I
day.
think that's a great point, the educational component of it, so that people know, like, what the insurance company is not that, or what they say is not the end of the story. That's actually just the beginning, that
Right.
you have rights beyond, what you might believe initially, and that you should at least question. So to get that word out to more people, to question and then to call Hillis to get
Yep.
the answers.
Yep.
All right. So those are awesome answers, guys. I want to ask a question that might give us a little bit funny responses, because I have a couple in my mind. Tell us about one claim that lives rent-free in your brain. The craziest claim that you've ever experienced.
Boy. There are some really interesting animal
I
ones
had
that have
one,
come
yeah.
up where it was like there was a policy that excluded rodents. And this particular
in
insured
Florida,
had
I
a raccoon.
think,
Yeah.
right?
It was a
one we
raccoon,
worked
and they
on
were like,
together.
That's what I was thinking about.
They said,
yes.
yeah, it was denied, a rodent. And I was like, I don't know that a raccoon is a rodent. And
Yeah.
so then did a deep dive into, like, when did rodents and raccoons, in their history, when did they depart? Were they ever one and the same? But anyway, we were able to get that one
I was going to say the
reversed.
same
Yeah.
one. I remember
Yeah.
because it was, I think it was even when he first started, and the woman was so sweet, and I just felt so bad for her. And it
Yeah.
took a while, but we ended
Yeah.
up
But
getting
we had
it
another
paid.
raccoon claim in Pennsylvania, remember? And they had to have the guy, the like raccoon dude, camp out on
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
And it was 3, they're the cutest
Yeah,
Yeah.
raccoons.
yes.
But and then the guy took pictures of them, and for a week,
Yep.
and we got the insurance company paid for the guy being out there because, again, it wasn't a rodent. But then they started to get specific.
Yeah.
Right,
So it's like
right.
now squirrels
Right.
like are not covered, right? But raccoons are. Or like that, these like little like different like claim like specific things are like so important.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
love the
But even
raccoons.
that's another perfect example of why Hillis is a great company to call, because they, would have been like, okay, they denied it. They said there's no coverage,
Yeah.
and then you call us and we're like, we don't know if a raccoon is a rodent, and it turns
Exactly.
out it's not. Those are the,
Yeah.
the kinds of scenarios that we've seen. So we know where to question and how to find answers. So anyway, but yeah, those are some interesting ones.
I was actually thinking of the raccoon.
The same
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
And the swamp rats. I don't know if anybody remembers, somebody had swamp rats, and I was like, I didn't know swamp rats were a thing, but it was in
No.
Florida after a storm.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have swamp rats in my house. And I was like,
What is
I
a swamp rat? Like a rat from the swamp?
I guess. I was just thinking
But I
of
think we
like
got that overturned,
ROUSs
too.
from Princess Bride.
ROUSs, yes.
Yes. I was like, you have giant swamp rats in your house. This
Oh
is
my
amazing. But we weren't
Yeah.
able to get it covered because they were rodents. But still, that's the one I think
Yeah.
about.
I actually have one more because I was thinking of that one, but this one was kind of recent. Actually, there was an older couple that had a home, and during the broad daylight, a fire started from the backyard, and the husband was disabled and was coming down, had to go down the stairs in one of those chair lifts, and the wife was helping him, and the trash man who happened to be driving by came in and grabbed him and got him out, so they were able to save the family, but they were in pretty bad shape health-wise. And we had a connection to them. We knew the family, and I actually personally had to go to the hospital to meet with the husband. And he had dementia, and like some other public adjusters had taken advantage of the dementia, and so I had to go and I had to talk to him about the claim, and we ended up handling it for them. And they were still in the hospital for weeks from the smoke inhalation. By the time they got out, I think we had gotten them a couple $100,000 already. And they weren't even in the same room in the hospital. It was very sad. It was great to be, though, involved with it and be able to help them in that sense, that they didn't have to think about it. They could be in the hospital, they could just handle their health and then let us handle the rest of it. So
What a great surprise coming out. Like, okay, we feel like we're finally able to come home, and then to get $200,000.
right,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all. And
you.
hopefully we'll do this again soon
Yes.
because you are all a wealth of knowledge.
We have lots of stories.
Yes.
Lots of stories.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hillis Public Adjusters podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who might need it, and stay connected with us for more insights and real stories from the field. And remember, when it comes to your claim, knowledge is power, but having the right advocate makes all the difference. We'll see you next time.